One of those moments that not only comes around every 3, 4, 5 generations. We all know it in our bones that our democracy is at risk.
You heard the president say this the other night. He has been very clear on this as well. We may not know all the winners of elections for a few days.
What was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
All right, thanks, Scott Shannon. Glad you're with us. Toll free. Our number is 800-941-SEAN. If you want to be a part of the program today, we're going to get an update on the absolute horrific mess that is Arizona. So let's go back to, and Carrie Lake will join us. Let's go back to where we were yesterday when Carrie Lake came on the program. And this was after Maricopa election officials made an announcement. They had 412,000 votes. We went over it in great specificity and great detail. And then Carrie Lake came on and she kind of confirmed those seemed to be the number. There were other votes in rural counties. We weren't expecting big numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so then they end up counting about, and these were early votes is my understanding, about 100,000 votes yesterday. And now, I don't know how this is possible. As of today, now yesterday was 412,000. As of today, we're hearing it's 625,000 uncounted votes still 2 days later in Arizona. 625,000 uncounted votes. I am told, and Carrie will give us the latest numbers when she comes on, 384,000 of the 625,000 are hand delivered. Now, I'm giving you an exact figure around 625,000, and there are other outstanding votes, but we don't know the exact number of those yet in rural areas. We don't expect those numbers to be right. How is it possible you count 100,000 votes from 412,000 votes and you end up with a grand total of an additional 300,000 votes, and now we have 625,000 uncounted votes, and this is all in the course of a 24-hour period? I can't say it any better than Marco Rubio said it. How is it that 7.5 million votes were counted in less than 5 hours in Florida, and the result was in? Nobody's questioning the integrity of the process or the results that people are not saying that they have, that they don't have confidence in the results. It's simple to do. 47 other states are getting this right. I have no idea when we will ever learn what's going on in the state of Alaska. The only thing that we do know is that we will have a Republican that will caucus with, or have a candidate that will caucus with the Republicans. Now, this ranked voting system there is an absolute mess. Then I've been trying to get as much information to pass on to you about the state of Nevada, and I've been back and forth like a yo-yo all day on the phone, getting conflicting reports and answers. But it looks like at one point today, I got a dire phone call from a source. I'm not going to say who, but somebody that knows. It looks like they just found a lot of votes in Clark County in Nevada. That would be the Vegas area. And I'm like, what do you mean you on Thursday you just find these votes? What does that mean? And then I'm asking how many? Apparently it's a lot of them. It turns out it wasn't a lot of them. So where we are with Nevada, Adam Laxalt himself tweeting out last night, of the 84,000 votes left to count in Clark County, and I have no idea what was counted since then. This was last night about 8:15 p.m. He said Cortez Masto could win 63% of them and she would still lose. That doesn't even take into account the gains we will make in rural counties. And apparently those votes now, and for example, out in the Reno area, They had 18,000 drop box day of votes collected. Day of votes usually tend to, especially drop box, meaning people delivered it to the center where the precincts are and dropped them in a box. Those are people that want to make sure that their votes counted. Those are people that are not really willing to put it in the mail because they don't trust it. And so I don't know what to tell you except that this country is better than this. The people of this country deserve better than this. And I want to be very clear. I don't want any advantage. If Republicans are going to lose, I can accept a loss. I've been doing this since 1987. There have been elections that I'm heavily invested in that we've won, and elections that I'm heavily invested in that we lost. Trust me, if I had my way, Joe Biden would have been elected. I did not want him to win. I did not want him to be president for all the reasons we're now seeing. And the same with Barack Obama. Example number 2. I could take it back to, when Clinton was running in 92 and then later in 96, et cetera. So it's, in life, you're never going to get what you want. Life is hard. Life is difficult. Life has challenges. Life has ups. Life has downs. We all go through it. And with the grace of God, we come through, hopefully on the other side, stronger and tougher. And nobody I have ever met in life ever goes through life without challenges and difficulties. And this transcends every single demographic identity politic issue you can ever imagine. Whether you grow up poor, rich, middle income, doesn't matter. Everyone's going to have problems. So everyone's going to have disappointments in life. Everyone's going to have wins in life. The ups and downs of life are real. The Road Less Traveled says life is difficult. It's the first line in the book. It's written by a guy by the name of M. Scott Peck. It's a classic, sort of like The Purpose-Driven Life by Pastor Warren, who we happen to like a lot. And anyway, so they're just these moments. This is insanity. This is not fair to every other state. Marco Rubio's right. How can they count 7.5 million votes in Florida in less than 5 hours? Now we're told today that we have 50% more votes than they were announcing yesterday in Arizona. And they have no plan to count them all today. And the grand total is 625,000, which means 384,000 were hand-delivered day of votes. Now, this not only affects Kari Lake, who's now pulled dead even with Katie Hobbs, who's the Secretary of State, but also the Democratic gubernatorial candidate who never recused herself from this process. That in and of itself is a clear conflict of interest. But it impacts the power in the United States Senate, because now that we have more votes in this count, that gives Blake Masters that much more of an opportunity. Is about 100,000 votes down. However, once votes start breaking, if you take 100,000 votes and, you work it through, so somebody gets, because it's day of, and, you break it through, all right, 70% of the vote, and you do that 6 times, guess what? You're at a number that brings Blake Masters into the lead over Mark Kelly. That's why no media outlets called the race. No media outlet, I think, is close to calling the race. I do believe there are media outlets that are close to calling Nevada, because I don't think the math is there for Masto to come back. We'll have to see. Anyway, so we're going to follow this today. We'll check in with Newt Gingrich on it. We'll also get the very latest from Kari Lake in the great state of Arizona. I can't believe it's happening. It shouldn't happen. By the way, Democrats have been all giddy that Lauren Boebert might have lost her race in the state of Colorado. And, early in the third day of the midterm elections, she now has taken a lead over her Democratic rival, but thousands of more ballots have yet to be counted. So we don't know. As of 11:17 a.m. today, Boebert was in the lead by 433 votes. Pretty slim margin, but still in the lead, according to the tallies in the Secretary of State's office. Previously, she was down with the Democrat had a narrow lead, but the race is far from over. Pueblo County Clerk Gilbert Ortiz confirmed to the Denver Post that his office is yet to count about 1,800 in-person votes and 5,200 mail-in votes, and is in the process of verifying the signatures of another 500 more ballots. And their office is now expected to filter updated vote counts to the state election officials throughout the day. And the remaining votes could give, the Democrat a chance to regain the lead. So, I mean, how is this possible? It really is unfair to the people of Colorado. It's unfair to the people in the district. It's unfair to the candidates. Arizona is so unfair to the people of Arizona that work hard to get out there, and they work so hard that they drop their ballots off day of. Those people want their votes desperately to count. They shouldn't have to go through what they're now going through, but this is now the system that we're working on. It's a pretty spectacular fail on a lot of levels. Anyway, more fallout from the election. Biden now has said he will make no changes after Tuesday's night election. I told you that there was going to be the consequence of this, that they would misinterpret these results. Now, it's interesting because you do have the possibility here with the votes that are outstanding in Arizona. That means Blake Masters, that race is far from over. Then Adam Laxalt with what I believe is a big advantage in Nevada. And as long as they don't find all these big batches of votes, I think based on the math as of today, my best guess is he wins that race and that Republicans win the House. I don't know what the final margin is going to be and when we're even going to get the final results of all of this. That too is pathetic. And then we got the Herschel Walker runoff. That could bring Republicans to 52, possibly more likely 51, but that would be a massive win for the Republican Party. And it would sort of like be, I don't know, you use an analogy, a tidal wave after an earthquake. In other words, you didn't know the extent of the damage of the earthquake until the tidal wave came later. But that could happen. Biden yesterday, his big answer during his press conference, plans on what he questioned about plans that he might change or what he would do differently. His answer, nothing. Nothing. Tell me what part of the Democratic Party's agenda has been successful. Look, if that was probably the most underutilized issue question in the campaign. Now, there's no doubt that the Dobbs decision had a bigger part to play than we thought it would heading into Election Day. I just assumed every American had figured out that abortion is not going to be illegal in America, but it was a bigger issue for people than we know. I think that is the single biggest cause for what happened in Pennsylvania because of the gubernatorial candidate taking a position of no abortion at all whatsoever, no exceptions for rape, incest, in the mother's life. He ends up losing by 13, and he's at the top of the ticket. And then you got Dr. Oz now who has to get Democrats to split tickets because he does make those exceptions. And he was able to successfully get 11% of the governor's loss to go into his column, but it wasn't enough to overcome, the massive deficit at that point. And then you got a lot of people that'll vote for a corpse that, as long as they're going to follow whatever Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden says, they just want a rubber stamp vote. And that explains John Fetterman away. That's the whole race right there. It's pretty unbelievable, pretty pathetic, pretty sad. So if their agenda is to double down on open borders and double down on new Green Deal socialism and double down on CRT and gender identification and double down on no bail funds and dismantle police departments and defund police departments, and no energy policy of domestic drilling and domestic production, then that's not going to work for the American people. They're all giddy today. Oh, inflation rate comes in lower than expected. It's still massive. And it's still going to guarantee a massive rate increase in interest rates by the Fed. All right, as we roll along, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN, our number. You want to be a part of the program. Biden warns he won't be able to end inflation during his first term. Well, so much for the transitory argument. Anyway, during remarks yesterday, the president said that he couldn't guarantee inflation would go away in the second half of his term. And responding to a reporter's question, Biden says, I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to get rid of inflation. than added, but I do think we can. We've already brought down the price of gasoline about, oh my gosh, he's talking about the $5 high. He's artificially flooded the supply of the world market by compromising our national security and tapping into the strategic petroleum reserves that are supposed to be there for emergencies. They're now at a 50-year low, and the price of a barrel of oil is now expected and predicted by some to even go as high as $150 a barrel. Now, we already know and expect and are anticipating heating costs are going to be going up a whopping 30% minimum, whether you heat your home by gas or oil this winter. We have a kerosene shortage. We have a diesel fuel shortage. And of course, he's not going to change anything. His absolutely will make no changes. So that means new Green Deal-ism will run the day. And as long as we rely on hostile regimes for the lifeblood of the world's economy, and there's no such thing as practical, renewable energy, clean sources of energy, then that means we are at a decided advantage. And guess what? Gasoline will go up to $5 a gallon nationally. It is a done deal because he has no reserves to release.
John Kerry, making America green, one Learjet liberal flight at a time. You just can't make this stuff up. Sean Hannity is on right now.
All right, 25 now to the top of the hour. Toll free, 800-941-SEAN if you want to join us. So just before the election, remember Biden said, and Manchin got livid and furious about his comments about ending coal and then ending energy, on drilling altogether. We're going to end all of it. I've already started. I'm just trying to finish that job. I mean, this is insanity. Coal miners now speaking out, slamming Biden as the White House is walking down their shutdown pledge. Coal miners rightly are saying, and industry groups are saying that, Biden in these final days of the campaign pledged to shut down coal plants, replace them with wind and solar alternatives. Quote, we're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar power. It's cheaper to generate electricity from wind and solar than it is from coal and oil. That is a lie. It is not true. We don't have the technology. We don't have the grid. It is way more expensive, just like the average EV electric vehicle is $22,000 more than a gas powered car that you buy. And then, of course, you've got to, pillage Mother Earth with heavy equipment that uses diesel and take out all the nickel and all the cobalt and all the manganese and all these other minerals that are needed for these batteries. Then I believe some of the components come directly from China, and I don't particularly want to do a lot of business now with the communist Chinese. And I fully expect the hostilities with Taiwan to begin at some point. And on top of that, then you have to charge your electric vehicle. The charging grid is 90% fossil fuels. So tell me why that makes a difference. But that's what he's been saying. And Brandon Richardson is a West Virginia coal miner telling Fox Business in an interview, it is beyond horrible. I think the administration is trying to destroy the country with these thoughts of this Green New Deal being the wave of the future, when as a country, we are definitely not set up for strictly wind, solar, water power, and whatever you want to go that's green. We don't have the infrastructure in place to handle that. And with an abundance of coal in the country, the way we've, changed regulations and the companies have changed to burn coal cleaner, that's pretty much, any country out there. There's really no reason to do away with something that keeps us energy independent. And remember, then he also went on to say that he's going to end all drilling in America. We don't have the ability to transition. This, renewable transition, dream, goal, fantasy, we put the cart before the horse. Now, if Democrats and liberal New Green Deal, climate cultists, if they want to come up with cheaper, cleaner energy, I'm all for it. If I can save money, I am for it. I think this country is in for massive sticker shock this winter when we know that home heating bills are going to increase 30% across the board, and likely it's even going to be higher. We have now put ourselves in a position to become Western Europe. And that means Western Europe this winter is going to see prices to heat their homes at levels they have never seen in their lifetime. They are anticipating people's annual income to heat their homes at a bare minimal level is going to be as high as 30% of what people make annually. And that's probably, you know, with sweaters and gloves and hats on in their house. You still have to have some heat. You're probably going to read stories this winter of people dying in the cold because they can't afford to heat their homes. This is on top of Biden's record high inflation. And all of this, you know, we're now on the verge of becoming Western Europe. And what is Western Europe doing now? They gave in to all of their climate cultists, and they decided that they weren't going to produce energy domestically anymore. And Russia came in and they turned on the spigot. They became completely reliant on Vladimir Putin, hostile actor, Russia, hostile regime. Then the war in Ukraine comes. And then European countries are on Ukraine's side. They didn't want to see a sovereign nation being invaded the way it's been invaded. And then, of course, the scorched earth policies of Vladimir Putin targeting civilians, you know, left, right, and everywhere in between, you know, it has been barbaric, brutal, authoritarian dictatorship in our lifetime. It's a massacre. And even still, nobody ever would have thought Vladimir Putin and Russia would have performed as poorly as they have been. But there's no end in sight with this. And now that's a problem for all of Europe. So what is Europe doing now? Now they're trying to get online mothballed, you know, coal burning plants, but they're not sure where they're going to get the coal from. The perfect place to get it from would be from us. If we had half a brain, knowing we have hundreds and hundreds of years worth of energy resources with coal, gas, and oil, we should be mass producing, and we would be the most oil-rich nation on the face of the earth. It would not only be good for national security, I've said this so many times, high-paying career jobs in America in the energy sector. It would make America rich. It would lower the price at the pump. It would lower the price to heat your home in the winter and cool your home in the summer. It would have a dramatic impact on inflation. We wouldn't have to worry about a diesel fuel shortage or a kerosene shortage, which is what we're now doing, and we'd fix the problem. Now, you can simultaneously, we can walk and chew gum. People can look for the new technology that would make it cheaper and affordable to make this, quote, great transition that they keep talking about. That what they've really done is they have unilaterally disarmed by putting the cart before the horse. They have determined that we must commit ourselves to being energy independent on renewables. The problem is they've given up the current lifeblood of our economy to do it without the technology to replace it or the infrastructure to even conceive it. So we are literally now in the short term, meaning probably a minimum of 2 decades, minimum. It's probably more like 50 years. We are decades away from achieving this dream, but they've decided to just unilaterally, economically disarm from the rest of the world by doing this insanity. And we're all paying the price. And that's why I had said before the election, I wish election day were going to be in February of this year, because there's going to be real anger as Americans now. Now, if the grid, as Governor Chris Sununu has said, and General Bolduc has said, if the grid that powers all of New England, it's all on one power grid, if, as is predicted, they have the potential for blackouts this winter, understand what that means. That means New England will be cold for periods of time. I don't know how long. I don't know how severe. And the reason for the possibility of the blackouts is they don't have enough natural gas available to even power the grid, never mind distribute it to the areas that rely on it. It's crazy. We did get inflation numbers today, and wow, Democratic mob, the media mob, they're dancing in the aisles. We got our October inflation report, CPI, Consumer Price Index. Remember, it was 1.4% when Donald Trump became president. 1.4%. Anyway, it declined 0.5% of 1%. And they're giddy. Wall Street, went nuts today after, by the way, a disastrous day on Wall Street yesterday. But what the media is not making clear is that October's inflation rate of 7.7% is a year-over-year figure. Inflation last year in October was already at 6.2%, already at 30-year high at the time, and now it's still a 40-year high. Anyway, that would be up from the 1.4% consumer price index, CPI, rate that Biden inherited from Donald Trump in January of 2021. So when they tell you inflation has decreased year over year, and they don't mention that inflation was already horrible this time last year, they're not giving you an accurate picture. The fact that anyone would even remotely look at this number and say, oh, this is great. See, things are getting better. Actually, things are about to get worse. Now, I would even argue further that if you factored in the impact of Biden compromising our national security in the lead up to the election by depleting now to a 50-year low the strategic petroleum reserves, that just artificially, flooded the market with more oil. That's all that did, and lowered the price temporarily because they thought it was an emergency. The strategic petroleum reserves are for emergencies. They're not there. It's not an emergency. The Democrats fear losing an election, so they want to artificially increase the world's supply of oil so the price goes down, so they think that will help them win an election. Now it's depleted to a 50-year low. It's nearly half of what Biden inherited. This is all going to impact. I'm telling you, it's when I read this stuff and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, if people aren't getting whacked hard enough, this is now what's coming. Biden saying this may not end by the end of his term is right. He's right in saying that. Every new economist, everybody in the know is bracing for a disastrous next year, year and a half or further down the road. But Biden won't make any changes. And he says he won't be able to end inflation during his first term. You have a progressive group launching a dump Biden push for 2024. This is now going to become very real. And it looks like, Joe Biden is more popular post-election. Anyway, left-wing group launching a campaign to boot Biden off the ticket in 2024. They vowed to put up a fight if he does run. Grassroots organization backed Vermont Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders run. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll probably go for Fetterman. Maybe MSDNC is correct. There you go. You got a great candidate there. Open the prisons, let everyone out free, defund the police, free safe heroin injection sites, legalize drugs, moratorium on all energy. That's genius. By the way, the minute I heard the report, Maggie Haberman is a Trump obsessed lunatic that works for the New York Times. That's the only way to describe her. And that claiming that Trump was blaming Melania and my name had come up about Oz, and it was just fake news from the beginning. And I won't share a conversation I had. It was totally fake. Anyway, and the president pointed that out on Truth Social today. The president understands that taking the position of no exceptions on abortion is not a politically viable position. Now, blessed are the peacemakers. My friend Larry Kudlow is urging Republicans to stop the finger pointing. And he says, in fact, these results are much better than the current conventional wisdom suggests. Look, if things turn out the way we think that they're going to turn out, and that would be Adam Laxalt winning in Nevada, and the chance that Blake Masters is in this game in Arizona, and there's runoff in Georgia on December the 6th. Look, all eyes are going to be on Georgia, and it's going to be different this time. It's not going to be Purdue and Kelly Loeffler and post 2020 and people thinking their votes didn't count, et cetera. It's not going to be that way. My understanding is even Governor Kemp is going all in for Herschel. It's going to be every single top Republican. There's not going to be any infighting. and it's going to be all hands on deck. And he's going to be, by the way, he'll be a great U.S. senator. And, you know, it's funny because for him, he said this last night on my TV show, this is just overtime for him. Herschel Walker's never lost an overtime game. Now's not the time to start. The real estate market, and remember we made that prediction a long time ago, has already cost U.S. home buyers $1.3 trillion in equity. You know what states' real estate markets are not being hit hard? Florida. No, I talked to a guy yesterday. He works in Southeast Florida. I said, how's the real estate business down there? He goes, well, sales have slowed a little bit. I said, what about prices? He goes, oh, no, prices haven't moved. They haven't budged an inch. I said, really? What about inventory? Most people are happy where they are. If anything, we have a shortage, but in certain areas, and he went through different areas of the state, what he's seeing. Anyways, August has lagged. The Case-Shiller Index showed that U.S. home prices fallen 1.3% from their June of 2022 peak, marks the first decline since 2012, and it's also likely well below the actual drop. Just look at the 7.6% decline in third quarter U.S. home equity as reported on Friday by Black Knight. The home equity drop equals $1.3 trillion, the biggest home equity drop ever recorded and the biggest percentage drop since 2009. Remember 2009, the housing crisis? Anyway, researchers at Goldman Sachs expect U.S. home prices to decline between 5 and 10%. And if it comes to fruition, it passed the 2.2% decline between May of 1990 and April of 91, making this the second biggest home price decline of the post-World War II era. Economists at Goldman Sachs research say there are risks that the housing market could decline even more. Anyway, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. All right, Kerry Lake coming up next hour. Also, we'll check in with Newt Gingrich, get his take. By the way, good news out of Nevada. Those numbers are closing in Adam Laxalt's favor.